Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma, Cujo by Louis Teague, Stand By Me by Rob Reiner, The Green Mile by Frank Darabont, and we have newly released Firestarter, directed by Keith Thomas. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going well, man. It's a good week. How's your week going?
Week was good. Decided to do another theme week. Firestarter, not the biggest release, but also kind of the only new release. So.
It was a quiet week.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I wanted to kind of look creatively, and Stephen King films, I mean, they are many. I mean, we're talking 40 plus or something like that. So I had plenty of ammo to kind of work with this week.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, and I was surprised. I kind of chose these films more so because I haven't seen them and they're not on the site in any sort of way.
Right.
But also, it kind of got a good sampling of Stephen King films and adaptations throughout the decades and how that evolves as well. So.
Oh, yeah, because we have 76, 83, 86. Awesome. Let's start right there?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to go back to 1976. This is Carrie by Brian De Palma.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's pretty much a classic, but how did it fare?
Sure. So we covered the Untouchables recently on the podcast, and maybe one of these days I can revisit Scarface if I feel like treating myself. You know. But when it comes to what we're looking at here for Carrie, I feel that this was necessary because not only is this one of the early first films, I think the first Stephen King adaptation that is being done.
Oh, okay, all right.
But also one of Brian De Palma's earliest films, so it was kind of a sweet spot for me. Carrie is a very simple story. Carrie is a high school girl with latent psychic powers, and in a tough spot going through high school. Her mom is a crazy religious nut.
Okay.
To the point that she shames her for being even female. The popular girls are just absolute hyenas in the high school. They're tearing her apart. And all of it, you know, they just won't leave her alone. All of it is just this boiling point that leads up to the prom, kind of a cliche, but definitely iconic for Carrie, where that pressure throughout the whole film builds up to those latent psychic abilities being shown a little bit more on display. The high school drama here, I gotta be honest, just a little bit too cliche. It is not.
Okay.
There's even for the 70s, mid 70s when this came out, the high school drama here has just been there, done that.
I was just about to say that it's more of the same. Basically, it's not refreshing in any sort of way. I honestly forgot how young that this story was. As far as I forgot that it was like teenagers and around prom and everything. Like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How was the acting? Was the acting okay? And just it wasn't much there for them to go off of?
Yeah, I think
writing wise.
It's what's odd is not a lot is done with what Carrie has to engage with. Prom is the destination for her character. We have a little bit of interesting relationship with the gym teacher who is kind of nurturing her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the stress of her psycho-religious mother is on full display, but none of them are used to really crank anything up or create engagement in the story.
Okay.
And what's left is just really catty high school stuff, which was just not entertaining for me.
It doesn't add anything to the film, really. It's more so just like filler. Or just
Exactly. And certainly doesn't add anything to the horror. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nearly all these films have horror elements or are just straight up horrors. So Carrie was pretty disappointing for me when going into this or when watching it because it unfolds so blandly and the payoff isn't the best. I mean, kind of goes back to what we talked about not too many weeks ago. Iconic doesn't equal good.
Right, and especially today. In the here and now. But it's funny that you say that with the teenage story where it's like, it's still, even back for 76, it's been there, done that. It's not really revolutionary by any means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's played out. I can appreciate if it's an originator in some things and certainly an originator of maybe combining horror with high school, potentially. I mean, 76.
Right.
Maybe not an originator, but like definitely an early voice in that type of a horror combining. Or stylings, but I just don't feel the drama built anything unique. If anything, my recommendation and where I was almost curious of watching the new version of Carrie, I guess maybe one came out in 2016 or ballpark.
Something like that, yeah.
When we've had the huge wave of remakes in the 2010s.
We're still in the middle of it too, I
think. Exactly. When it comes to that, make the high school drama even more vicious. Make it almost, impossibly villainous and have it kind of break apart from just the girls being catty that hate her. So there's also a lot of time-wasting scenes where just there is nothing to add. There is a whole scene where the popular girls get put in detention and have to work through detention, and it's just like... It's already a short film, and there's.
I was gonna say it's an hour 38.
Yeah, and it adds nothing, absolutely nothing. The story is just so small, so inconsequential, and just to lead up to prom, I'm telling you, it just really does not pay off. I was just very disappointed with how little this story, especially a King story, did to engage the audience.
Do you think that it was just about you getting to know and getting closer with the characters? So the kind of the shock and awe when it comes down to the prom and everything like that, like you care about it more?
You certainly care about Carrie, but I don't think anything is done to really drive that up. I don't think anything is done to make the pressure from her mother, who is obviously going to, she cannot find about these powers or anything like that that are sprinkled throughout the film. There's nothing done to create pressure. If anything, things resolve themselves a little bit too easily, just to keep things moving snappy along.
Okay.
And there need to be more substance there and engagement with the audience.
So it's empty, pretty hollow is what it sounds like.
Yeah. If only to just build up to this prom destination. Finally, about halfway in, we get characterization on our high school antagonists as well, this catty group of popular girls.
Yeah.
And why we should give a damn to even look at the screen. I mean, this is halfway in, and there's nothing there, and it's just rough. Up until then, I would say it's just bad high school drama. I hate to be this brutal out of the gate on it, but it was a lot of waste of time on this one. Some highlights, like I said already, areas that work are performances with the mother and the gym teacher.
Okay.
That relationship between the gym teacher specifically, I think, are really great because it's leaning into kind of this nurturing of Carrie that she doesn't get, and she's trying to, have her have fun and really discover herself in high school. It's, once again, it does not twist the knife at all. It doesn't add a bit of salt to our drama. It doesn't really do anything there. It's nice that she has someone on her side, but not really used strategically in the screenwriting of this. And then the crazy religious mom is, again, very iconic, but I just wish it was used in a better way. Some sort of hook to be a voice of doubt among Carrie's mind. And there's a bit of that, but it goes nowhere, and again, just very disappointing. If anything, the fact that we don't see more sprinkles of Carrie's power up until this point, we see very little. But the mother should have been constantly putting pressure on there, and her having to lash out in some way and try to hide that power. There's a bit of that, but it needs to be amped up so we stay engaged for the hour-long, build up to a 30-minute finale with the prom.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it sounds like it's failing a little bit.
Things. Oh yeah. That's what I said. I don't mean to be brutal out of the gate.
No, it's surprising, but okay. Well, just still with the actors. How was Sissy Spacek as Carrie?
She was good. She was very quiet. Okay. I believe this is her first performance as well. So start to, I don't know if I would call it a iconic career, but Sissy Spacek is definitely someone to recognize.
Oh, for sure.
In Hollywood.
No, absolutely.
The mother as well. I forget the actress's name, but very, very iconic in her performance of this psycho. Again, it goes to the extent that she's shaming her for even being a woman at all.
Right.
So I mean, this is clearly big delusions. And trapping her in both her development and actually as a child within the house and whatnot. But yeah, it's nowhere near enough to save it, and I would say even the writing itself of these characters is, again, it's not there. This is not hitting for me. So the soundtrack is an absolute joke. There's a weird 70s game show feel. There's like slide whistles and horns, and it's very odd.
Okay, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
Not fitting, and not weird fitting either. Just plain out not good.
No, and it's featured prominently in that one detention scene that was just a waste of time. So I was really tuned into it as well, because I was like, this is not good. I usually don't kind of criticize the flavor of a soundtrack so much, but I would say it's, again, the context here. This is a horror movie. These are things that are taking you out of the horror and making those boring moments stand out all the more, because then you're saying, what is the feeling this movie is going for?
Yeah, it's super important. That's why we bring it up all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big thing for me, and I think it's definitely noticeable in its fault here as well.
Yeah.
So, but bottom line, really, the conclusion here is not worth the payoff. This story should have been given small beats of conflict, like I said, for Carrie to test her powers, for us to be engaged in some sort of way. Even similar horror at the time understands this. We have the same year The Omen coming out, which is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
And a few years later, as far as Stephen King adaptations, we have The Shining, which is well familiar with giving beats of action and this psychic ability, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure.
We need to be keyed in. We need to be engaged with the audience, and this film is just missing that. The ending to this certainly has iconic visuals and some shock value for how far they go, but it is simply not worth sitting through a very generic high school plot to get there. We're going to go ahead and give Carrie 1976 a 35.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, I didn't mean to be brutal out of the gate, but this was not a hot start.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't have predicted that.
Yeah.
You just hear Carrie, you just assume, it's a classic. I mean, it's been remade,
Exactly.
Stephen King, 35. But yeah, I mean, really, even for an hour 38, it's really, that 35 just represents not worth your time.
Yeah.
And if you want King, there's a lot of other content out there.
There's a lot of other
better stuff,
and so much around the same theme of small town psychic powers.
True.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
So
that's a great way to put it. Okay, so Carrie with a 35%. Okay, we're going to jump some years in advance here. We're 1983 now. Another classic. I mean, all these are pretty damn classics. Everyone knows the names of these films. But again, 1983, this is Cujo, directed by Louis Teague. And how did this fare up? And especially for a 2022 watch.
Sure, a lot better. Cujo is obviously about a dog, in case you don't know. But this is really about a family drama involving trust. And even from that brief explanation, you can see that there's more to it than just this kind of a single payoff of the horror beats of this. There's more to it there. The family is a family of three. It is the focus here, and is focused around their bonds getting strained in between each other. Husband and wife, wife, also mother to son. There's a lot done to kind of strain that, and the appearance of a rabid dog is kind of just the straw that broke the camel's back as far as making a situation worse. This gives me a lot of TV movie vibes. Granted,
I could totally see that.
Yeah,
I could. That totally makes sense.
And I don't mean to knock it in that kind of way, but it's just
the way it held up.
Yeah. It wasn't stellar for that reason. I think there's a lot to love about this film, but it just wasn't jumping out, or I wasn't, kind of edging my seat for that reason.
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe it has something to do with such the family focus in this, and the, obviously we're talking about Stephen King properties where the original It was entirely a TV special, so maybe that's just was the market. Yeah. The quality of the production is just a little bit on the simpler side, and definitely something to note for my critique.
Okay.
But even with a simpler plot than Carrie, it works so much better because while we have Cujo being kind of pushed towards the end, the latter half of the film, just like we have in the previous entry, there is engagement through this family drama that keeps us paying attention to the screen. I think it keeps us involved in maybe rooting against our characters, which is always kind of a little bit of a line that you want to dance with horror. So I think this movie is coming out swinging a lot better, and especially when we finally get there, the animal work around Cujo is very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's cool.
On two sides of this, we're talking about makeup. I mean, the actual disgusting progression of how he looks and the gunk and the blood and everything like that. I think there is a lot of credit done there, but there's also, I mean, I'm no expert as far as like animal training or anything like that, but
it's really solid.
There's subtleties to this Saint Bernard. That is the dog, right? Saint Bernard?
Yeah. Yep.
There's subtleties to how he's breathing. He's getting tired as it kind of progresses, as it as he's getting more involved and the disease is taking over.
Yeah.
I think it does a lot, and I would say oddly enough, I mean, Cujo the dog is the star of the show without a doubt. I mean, the actors don't even come close to what the dog is doing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And were there elements were you picking up on things of maybe sometimes they were using more in studio dog sounds or voicing or anything like that? Like, you know what I mean? Was it maybe they were overdubbing?
I think there probably has to be, especially for some of the hits, if you will. I mean, I
guess the biggest thing is what I'm asking is, even for 83, there wasn't much noticeable. Like, you weren't just like, oh, that was this. Oh, that was that. Because you can give leniency because it's
Sure. And maybe that TV movie production kind of, or that TV feel.
Right. But even 40 years old, it still holds up that good. Where you're like, oh, no, they did a solid job here, all around.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think, again, I don't know too much into the actual animal production of this or the animal training, the specialists.
Yeah.
It was impressing me. And sound design and visual effects design absolutely are a highlight there. From makeup work to subtle cues that the dog does,
Yeah, that would be refreshing to see because, I mean, now, 2022, it would just be CGI.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So it's kind of refreshing to watch at the same time.
Recently, Tom Hanks.
Turner and Hooch? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
The iTunes movie.
Yeah, the iTunes.
What is it called? Apple.
Finch.
Yeah. iTunes.
I don't know why I'm even bringing it up because the dog wasn't even CGI in Finch. So.
No, I thought you said it was.
Wait, was
I think that dog was completely CGI, or was it not?
I forget. Something else was CGI. No, I think the dog was real. I think, obviously the robot was part CGI. There was a mix of anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's not like it was a movie that anyone saw anyway.
But no, I agree with you. Wasn't there that?
I think Hooch. We gotta watch Hooch next, man. We should do a dog special.
Yeah. Oh, there was. We skipped that dog movie in February with Channing Tatum. It was just called Dog.
The special is writing itself at this point.
I don't want to watch all these dog films.
That's really funny. But anyway, okay, back on the tracks. Cujo looked good.
Yes, and I would say definitely the highlight. And if there's a sole reason, I mean, maybe it's not like a dog lover film because it's a horror around it, but definitely a huge highlight to a otherwise kind of middle of the road production. Sure. What I mean, this is a big shining spotlight on something that elsewise the rest of the movie has pretty low budget. But yeah, I mean, very simple film. I have a note here for soundtrack that it's pretty 80s. There's a cool heartbeat motif that's in here. Felt very John Carpenter, which a little bit of a nod to Firestarter that we'll talk about later on in the podcast. But John Carpenter actually does the music for Firestarter.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, decent soundtrack. I would say overall
picks up the horror beats.
Yes.
And yeah,
exactly.
It's
certainly not a game show vibe like Carrie.
Right.
So.
Helps add to the suspense, or at least what's happening in the scenes. Good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I would say overall, this film is very simple. There is a final sequence in this that is pretty much the last 30 minutes of the film, and I won't get into spoilers, of course, but I think this is where Cujo, pop culture-wise, would gain its kind of Jaws-like popularity, or its Jaws-like status to it. Where
it's the same movie in many ways.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it. It's a good point.
Yeah. But it's really in that last 30 minutes. Yeah. So, while from a bird's eye, you could be saying, well, this is the same thing as Carrie. This is, us waiting for the conclusion.
Right. I was just going to say, it's worth the hour to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's worth the hour and much more engaging within that hour because of this family drama.
Right. The whole film is worth it.
Exactly.
Not just a specific element. Cool.
Yeah. I think it's effective at making a complete and full story out of a rabid dog attack, which is, not really, if you had to sit down and write a story, are you really going to fill, 2 hours or an hour and 30 of time, around a rabid dog attack? Mm-hmm. So I think it is effective or impressive that it pulls that off. Characters act a little bit illogically in that last 30 minutes, but at that point, you're just kind of, you're kind of waiting for the movie to end a little bit, so I'm not going to really take my knives out on it. And I think it's a shame that this illogical horror acting is there in the last 30 minutes, because it really is a victim of it just being crammed into the last 30 minutes. So
was the manic? So you weren't buying it? Basically, it was a little bit too far.
Yeah,
like we always say we like competent characters.
Mm-hmm.
But there's reason for them to be a little manic at the end when things are coming to a head.
Exactly.
But they still went, they pushed it too much.
They pushed it a little bit too much. I was just like, why are you doing that?
Okay, gotcha.
that type of, intuition or kind of bullshit alarm went off. Basically.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So.
I think it's very much just a product of horror movies so many times. It's a classic thing. It's just like, why would you go into, the no outlet, or why would you go into the room where there's no way out?
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
For sure. And legitimately, on the other hand, I don't know how you would write this film to maybe be padding out this rabid dog attack. I mean, the dog's just gonna get put down, right. In the second act. So maybe the dog has babies and they're all rabid, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not Stephen King and not a screenwriter, but I would say in its current form, we're just kind of waiting for something to happen. Yeah. I think it's done leagues better than Carrie, but still kind of falls to that same criticism. I think overall, though, a decent movie. Not a huge recommendation from me, but you can watch much worse things with your time. And if anything, the animal work here is a pretty big highlight if that is something that you enjoy at home for folks. We're going to go ahead and give Cujo a 56.
56. All right, good movie.
And also, I think telling that they haven't tried to remake Cujo.
I was actually surprised by it.
Yeah, they
didn't do
did
it.
Pet Sematary. They did Carrie. You'd think Cujo would be ripe for that. So
just wait. I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
Spoken into existence.
And Carrie was 2013. Mm-hmm. They came back and redid that one. Now I'm wondering. I think we're going to be ticking up here. I just have a feeling. But this is we're now in 1986. This is Stand By Me with Rob Reiner.
How do we keep on circling back with Rob, Tom?
It's really funny because he had such a great stretch of films.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of the top guys.
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of just sucks lately, right?
Yeah, I don't think he directs much. He was obviously in Wolf of Wall Street as in an acting performance,
Which was funny.
Yeah.
I actually liked him in that role.
Yeah,
but anyway, I guess that's my hot take on Rob Reiner.
Yeah, well, circling back to Rob Reiner.
But no, Stand By Me, again, another name that everyone knows whether you've seen the film or not.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we get with this classic? How did it fare? Again, it's still about, 37 years ago, something like that?
Yeah. And a step back earlier in his career from what we covered, and really still a very solid movie as far as his repertoire. This one is definitely worthy of being called a classic in a lot of regards. Stand By Me is a tale of 4 boys who embark on a journey one summer day to find a rumored dead body. Each of these characters, and this is really the focus of the film for folks at home if you have not seen this, each of these 4 boys, they have more to them than their surface personality. So that under the kind of emotional intensity of being young, being pubescent, and going to see this dead body, which is kind of a grisly end to the odyssey of it. It kind of brings that emotion out in each of them. And I'll say right off the back, and I'll touch on it again, if you're wondering how these kids stand up to that type of emotional acting, I think it's oddly enough, and this is coming from me, who is probably most critical of this, it really does stand up.
We don't hold back when it comes to kid acting.
We
think, generally speaking, it's bad.
Yeah.
Keep the kids off the screen.
Keep it off.
And we will absolutely trash a kid if need be. But still, and you have 4 of them here. But I mean, it's good. It's when you have quality kid acting. I mean, that's the big thing why Stranger Things can be so good, because
read my mind.
When it's good, it's really good.
Absolutely.
And these 4 kids do.
Yes, absolutely. Almost each and every one of them too.
That's
important.
I would imagine a slacker.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Get it together.
Like Jerry O'Connell is still pulling his weight.
Good. Yeah. The main is going to be Will Wheaton and I believe Phoenix.
River Phoenix. Yep.
Both of them are great, but even
you have Corey Feldman.
Yep. Oddly enough, I mean, believe me, I'm not a Corey Feldman fan, but good here.
Yeah.
And just very surprising across the board. But you hit the nail on the head. It's so wild to see the mood or the source material for the mood and tone that media like Stranger Things will try to imitate.
Yeah.
This is, I would say, a good watch in modern day because, I mean, obviously things are going to be trying to do the Stranger Things route forever.
Right,
that kind of 80s nostalgia. I feel like we're already past 80s nostalgia and entering into 90s and 2000s type of nostalgia grabs.
I would say sure, yeah.
But the format, or if you will, the blueprint of 4 young kids and talking and dealing with more emotional things like adults would.
And some type of adventure, drama, horror, mystery type thing. Yeah, for sure.
I can't really say that there is a blueprint older than this in the Goonies, and obviously the Goonies more comedic. So this Stand By Me, I think, is a good recommendation from me because it really is. It's fascinating to watch a blueprint of that, and probably the most emotional and true to the emotion of these characters as well. We don't see Stranger Things, tackling the type of emotion in this
that you're
story.
getting out of this. Yeah.
That
That's
each
so
of the
good.
kids are
And to
going to and kind of unpacks and unpeels that.
The fact that the writing was there for it, and then you're dealing with kids, and then for them to deliver the lines so well. I mean, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. We can talk more about the kid acting. I have more notes on it. So, I mean, it really is the whole movie. I would say if I had to give it the elevator pitch, it's pretty decent, if trending very good. I would say sometimes it's just hard for me to take serious when we go from kind of like a fart joke or something like that into a kid breaking down crying. There is a lot there that I would say there's a huge demand for emotion in these kid actors, and they're there to meet it. And I think that is enough to get kind of a pass from me.
Sure.
The fact that they're even trying to make sure all 4 of our kid actors are engaged with the plot and that they're bringing that emotion.
Yeah, and that itself is a juggling act.
Yeah.
For the writers and everything like that.
The production,
sure.
absolutely. But I think I put a lot of notes for it because I think it is still going to, though it was a pass from me, I think it is still going to live and die on whether you like kid actors or not. I could see someone really not liking this movie at all because that's just not checking a box for them, and they have no interest of watching a story like that.
But I think there's something to be said that when the kid acting is good, then it's really good, and it's almost it helps the watchability factor to it even more.
For sure,
it's not just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. It's like, oh wow, these kids are good, and I think it's I don't know. I think this would be for most audiences. I really do,
and that in a combination with like the blueprint aspect of this, I think it was a fascinating watch in kind of modern day. For that.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, I would say when it comes to personally as an example, this movie overcoming some of my usual bias that I do not like kid acting.
Absolutely.
Guess what?
Just go back and listen to the Adam Project.
Has that kid acted in anything else yet? We gotta watch his career.
Anyway, but guess what?
I mean, this I think got over even my heavy critique of that type of or my personal bias. I mean, it is probably the best performance Will Wheaton has ever done to today with his career. That includes Next Gen and whatever the hell he's doing now. So hosting shows about Picard and whatnot. So not on the show, but hosting shows. We also get Kiefer Sutherland, which I have a huge soft spot for. A minor role, but yeah, he adds some much needed pressure to the story, which it kind of keeps things interesting. I don't know why I was thinking of you, Tom, when watching this, but I was thinking of actually The Revenant with this, just with
what?
Think of it, it's like an Odyssey. They're trying to get somewhere, and Kiefer's role is to put pressure from behind.
Okay, gotcha.
And kind of they move it along, So, and that's really Kiefer's role in this.
I gotcha.
To be that they're not just in the wilderness by themselves. They're not just with their emotions by themselves, but there is a real threat to it.
Yeah. And a huge bear attack scene, right? Too. That was
when Will Wheaton cut open that horse, man.
No, but that's a good point. Actually, yeah.
Hate to say it, the soundtrack was a little bit. He knew it was coming. He was waiting for it. The soundtrack was a little bit of Forrest Gump syndrome. Listen, I get it. They're in the 50s.
Are we touching on that this episode?
We have to. I think I've called it Forrest Gump syndrome before. I get it. We have to hear doo-wop every inch of the soundtrack, and I can't stress enough. This is not a judgment of the quality of the music, but I feel it is impossibly cheap and lazy when it's not incorporated into real story beats. There is a rate, and there's almost a glimpse of them doing it right. They have not a Walkman, but I guess just a normal radio that they carry around and whatnot. And sometimes music is put through there. Other times it's just they're putting in whatever song they want to from the time period, and it feels
at least
cheap.
They stayed in the decade, like they weren't jumping decades and everything, right?
Sure, yes, it was not a House of Gucci problem.
Yes, to
make a recent callback.
Yeah.
So,
but overall, it was just too much.
Yeah,
if it was sprinkled in a little bit.
Exactly. Incorporate your music if you want a soundtrack like that. I'm not talking about a score. I'm talking about actual songs into story set pieces. Sure. And I think why I make such a big note out of this, not that it was a make or break for me with this film, but it's almost there. They have some setup.
Right.
Go all the way. I just don't understand. It's kind of a drop ball with that.
Okay.
So.
And was it matching your mood at all? So with your emotions and mood of where you are in particular scenes, was the music almost jarring in some sort of way, or were they at least trying to match in good feel moments? Was it good feel music? In intense scenes, was it?
Well, there's not really like intense doo-wop, but
well, that's
yeah. No, I think it is uplifting and upbeat when it needs to, and that's primarily when the kids aren't crying or something.
It's somewhat matched, right?
It's
somewhat matched it.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
More so, it's a judgment of, be creative in the writing of how music is incorporated into set pieces or into story elements.
Okay,
so
very cool.
I would say, though, a pretty solid movie. There is a lot of meaningful arcs for our characters, and like I said, there is a heavy amount of fascination to look at this as the starting blueprint of what a lot, even beyond Stranger Things, tries to rip off. I mean, we're talking even the newer It films are basically trying to rip off this film with the collection of friends.
Right.
That's another Stephen King property.
Yeah. That's funny.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
It really is a starting point there, and a little bit it kind of. Really, I was coming at this much higher at the beginning of the film because I was so kind of enveloped with, wow, this is it's all right here, what everyone tries to do with these kind of kid-focused stories, but still very, very creative, a very good time and a solid movie. Like I said, my caveat for this is, for those that know kid films won't work for them already, guess what? This is not going to be in that. Let me lean into the recommendation side of this, though. If you have not seen this and enjoy any kind of a media that we talked about so far, I think you're going to have a great time with this film. So we're going to go ahead and give Stand By Me a 73.
Oh, 73 is a very good score.
And well-deserved.
And the film, again, it's only an hour and 29.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all snappy. These,
absolutely.
So, okay, so 73 is that's a pretty damn good film. Like I said, I think suiting for most audiences.
Yes.
I'd be very interested to really get a feel for how true King fans, actual people reading his novels, I wonder how they view these films. It would be interesting.
I wonder too. And maybe that's just some of the revere of even like Carrie being that first adaptation. There was electricity around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Vince. So we're going to keep it going. That was 86. We're going to 1999 now. Again, a movie I think everybody knows. This is The Green Mile, with the likes of Tom Hanks and Michael Clark Duncan and David Morse. And what do we have here with The Green Mile?
So one I've actually never seen. I have not seen. I've seen like memes.
Of course, yeah.
But
that must have been cool to watch it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, and it really is such a unique story in how it's told. It really is. It's kind of a reverse Shawshank Redemption in the sense that it's about just giving humanity to prisoners in a very hardcore kind of not turn of the century, but old timey prison to it.
Right, sure, yeah.
Frank Darabont, as a director, is seemingly the solely responsible for saving Stephen King's movie career, as from being much lower in quality as an average point, definitely on my ratings. I would say, while it's not the greatest movie, The Mist has a lot of style to it and is a bit of a cult classic. Definitely worth a watch. Then, of course, we have Shawshank Redemption, a powerhouse of the film, which is without a doubt the best Stephen King movie, kind of coming to top of mind, and a total must-watch, especially among Frank's work as a director.
Okay, sure.
Frank is also writing or adapting these as the screenplay for this, so that counts for Green Mile and Shawshank. I don't know about The Mist off the top of my head.
And I think it's only him solely too. Working off of King's novels, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, it is. I know it is with Green Mile for sure, but I think it might be the same for the Shawshank as well.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so. I mean, he knows how to craft this feel of, again, I don't want to say turn of the century because it's not, but old-timey jail.
Yes.
Old-timey jail, I guess, has a...
Yes. I mean, we're still... What is this time period?
It's supposed to be like...
Is it Depression era?
Yeah, Depression era, a little bit after.
Okay, gotcha.
I think pre-World War II, though, specifically.
Okay,
so,
yes.
I could be wrong, but Tom Hanks plays a guard captain on death row here, named The Green Mile. What is a very mundane job that never tests his character or his morality with the evil that surrounds him. That evil is seen through a different lens throughout the film. That evil, what you would assume to be a death row inmate, is kind of casted in a different light, and that is definitely put into a test when a new inmate comes in and kind of miraculously changes everything for not only Tom, but pretty much everyone on the Green Mile and on the death row block. I would say it's most impressive here, this film, is in that prison feel. I cannot understate that. Especially this coming after Shawshank Redemption. You think this might be tired out, but I don't think anyone else even tries to tackle this type of prison feel. And Frank is, as a director, is so... I mean, he's got it on lock. This is his, genre almost.
So, but it felt real. It just felt real and believable, every part of it.
Absolutely. And in ways, to kind of counter what I was saying there, this could maybe feel tired out if you watch Shawshank back to back with it. But I feel Green Mile crafts its own identity because there's such a kind of a sad whimsicalness to it. The lens we see.
That's an interesting take.
The lens we see these inmates through, we know as the audience, the reality is they are death row. They have been conscripted, but constantly the villains or the monsters are not behind the bars. They are, on the Green Mile itself. So I think it's a very, very well-crafted story, and the visual storytelling is right there to meet it.
And I love the fact that that's good to hear that it stands on its own. It's not like, the Green Mile, no, but watch Shawshank.
You're right.
That's cool that on its own, it is standing at its own property, even though there's so many kind of little similarities.
Exactly.
It's just 5 years ago, by the way, because I think Shawshank, that's right. So Shawshank, I believe, was 1994. And probably showed him one for Best Picture, but Forrest Gump did, ironically enough.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
But no.
It's all tying together.
But even so, 4 years later only, or 5 years later, to still have, to come back to that type of genre.
Yeah.
But create it new, keep it fresh. I like that.
And there's a freshness to it. I think it's also a little bit of a higher of a recommendation for me because not many people are tackling that as a setting. And not only that, he's doing it to such a high degree.
Yes.
You really feel like you're there in that time period.
Which could be extremely disturbing. It could be, it could keep audiences away. But you're right. I'm just trying to run things through my head, and it's not really much of a touched on subject.
Which is,
and then, that era and everything like that.
Exactly. And maybe even the difficulty of us kind of putting our finger on, what era prison that's supposed to be.
Prison in general. I think it's just think about how many crazy dark things you can have with 18th century prisons.
Oh, sure. Going even
prisons.
older.
It's just
absolutely.
it's really, I guess, not touched on.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's because it's not exactly, it could be definitely an off-putting topic.
Yeah.
But regardless, it feels like you're there. You're buying into the world that he's creating there.
Yeah, and I got to give credit just that he is crafting this subgenre himself, Frank as a director, and a writer as well. In adapting this. Let's talk about Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is hit or miss for me a little bit when it comes to the aforementioned Forrest Gump. That would probably be a miss, but luckily I do like him a lot here. He plays a really great protagonist, and I'm always one to kind of root for the villain. I like well-crafted villains,
definitely.
Salt and pepper, like we've talked about on the podcast plenty of times now. But it's so good to see when it's being done on the protagonist, on the hero, basically. He is by no means a perfect man, but he is perfect in the morals he brings to, again, a mundane job.
Right.
He's a stand-up guy and a character you really want to root for because it's not that he's up against the world, but he holds true to his ethics and his morals and his duty in those little moments, and that's what really crafts that character for it. And again, he certainly has flaws. He's not a perfect character by any means, but a very well crafted hero to this story.
That's good to hear, and it's good to hear that he carries it too. Because I feel like sometimes Tom Hanks sometimes I just feel like he's not the best actor. Actually, you know me, huge Hanks fan.
Yes.
With most people, it's not like that's anything crazy to say.
It's not controversial.
But I will say, if you go through his films, where it's just sometimes, like you said, it is hit or miss, and sometimes it's what are his is he truly? Is he
a comedic
good
or
actor?
Dramatic actor?
Right, exactly.
Pick a lane almost. So,
but it's in incidents like this, and a lot of other times in the '90s as well. I mean, he's on fire right here. He's jet fuel as far as box office goes right now.
Absolutely,
it's good to see that he fits this character and delivers it well.
Yeah, and I think again, equal credit is probably shared in the writing and the adapting of this story for the character himself. But Tom really does. Tom Hanks. we got to do last name for that one. Hanks is definitely bringing a lot, and again, like how I would describe it is a hero in the mundane, and I think there's such an originality to that. There's not really any kind of bombastic stakes to what we're up against, but he still brings it full on.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Cool.
So, I mentioned already the movie's tone is sad but whimsical. Very heavy topics around the Green Mile being death row are introduced, but it is contrasted with a whimsical comedic setups and very lighthearted moments with the prisoners, with the guards, and around life in general. Kind of definitely a lens or philosophy to life itself that our characters kind of exist in. These prisoners may be sentenced to death, but nearly all of them are victims in circumstance in some way. So in just the same way that we have almost a perfectly morally good character with Hanks's character, we have what is assumed to be perfectly evil death row inmates that are then opened up, and it creates a range, for how these characters are actually human and how we meet them on their own terms, under these this tight circumstance. So,
is it the story hugely of complete different set of people in different circumstances? And yet, so many similarities as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as good and evil, and that being blended in each individual character.
There's so much too that is, they could really try to focus on what they actually did to get them onto death row, but sometimes that's looked away at, or sometimes it's as well kind of shown and saying, hey, this is, maybe this is a kind of a social misunderstanding.
That's
as
cool.
well.
Yeah.
So, again, props to whenever King wrote this originally. Definitely props to 99 for kind of tackling that as an issue in a film. So,
I have a question.
Sure.
Because this is the first time now. The first 3 films are like basically an hour and a half. This is 3 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And how is
meaty?
Right? Is it necessary? Is it good?
Meaty.
We've watched. Was it Magnolia?
Yeah.
And that was over 3 hours, and you said worth it.
Yeah, I think this is generally worth it as well.
Okay.
So there's so much time dedicated to these comedic setups, these kind of wacky, sad, whimsical moments.
Right, okay.
Maybe not wacky, but sad, whimsical. And when it comes to when I look at each of those comedic moments individually, I could definitely, if I was in the editing booth, I could say, we can chop this, we can chop this. I could definitely say there's fat to trim.
In 3 hours and 9 minutes, you're going to find it.
Yeah. But at the same time, this story itself is a very unique story about creating a lens that we're seeing our brutal characters through in a new light, in the same light that Tom Hanks is seeing them these prisoners through. And though it may, though every comedic setup may not be necessary for the movie or for the message, I do think it's still worth the 3 hours because we get so attached, to our characters this way. They have
it's like a small
ample
epic,
time.
Really.
Yeah, they have ample time to really get to know them, and these comedic setups again, they may not be necessary.
Right,
yes.
right.
But the end result, the outcome is worth it.
Right. You're not sitting there being like, I don't give a shit about this right now. That's good that you're engaged throughout that 3 hours and 9 minutes. Even though, of course, in a movie that long, it's fat to trim. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good to hear. I mean, you're really sitting down and you are giving your 3 hours to be kind of entranced in this world.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I mean, that's what.
And it's such a unique story. This is not going to be something that
talk about generic like Carrie.
Yeah. This is so interesting of how this progresses and kind of magical realism elements to Stephen King's writing that comes in through here. I maybe shot myself in the foot not saying this. This is not a horror movie outwardly. It deals with horrific kind of circumstances of death row, but it is not outwardly a horror movie. So there's just so much of a unique story being told here. It is absolutely worth your 3 hours
Awesome.
for that when
Very
it comes
cool.
to
Very
it.
cool.
So, additionally, I would say we have some of our best performances through Prisoners. Of course, rest in peace, Michael Clarke Duncan.
Yep.
Gets his sole Oscar nomination here, and honestly would have had my vote to win for Best Supporting that year. I looked at it when I wrote down my notes, but pretty sure that was a slim Best Supporting year on that year.
Really, for 99?
Yeah.
Okay.
Best Supporting, that is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but also that let me just drill in. He does such a great job.
Yeah.
At crafting a unique character, and really is the key. If the whole point of the film is to kind of flip the lens and make you question your biases in coming into this death row story, he is the key to that, and he sells it just so wonderfully. We also get a very early Sam Rockwell making an appearance. The working actor himself and is pretty iconic in establishing his usual provoker role. I think I give credit to it because it's so early on in his career that he has this kind of, he's really found his niche as that provoker role. And is seriously just an actor that's going to be all over the map and just working his ass off. But good to see that early on in his career and in this role specifically, he hits a sweet spot that we see maybe later on in his career, him getting recognition for like 3 Billboards that he got the Oscar for.
Yeah,
it really is here. So...
we've always liked Sam Rockwell too.
Oh, for sure.
He's always there. He's always putting out good performances. A lot of indie stuff sometimes, but he's always solid.
Yeah,
he's pretty much, you can always count on him big time.
Absolutely. But I think this movie is a bit slow, but really it is just such a unique story that really has just a surprising amount of heart. It keeps you interested. It keeps it unique. And not really a formulaic story in the slightest. And I think that is some high praise I can give to the originality of something. Believe me, if it is enough to justify a very meaty 3-hour plus runtime for me, I think that alone hits a benchmark. We're going to go ahead and give The Green Mile an 80 on the dot.
Oh, awesome. I was hoping it would touch the 80s, and it definitely sounded like it was going to reach it.
Yeah, well worth it. And again, just so unique.
Yeah, straight up, this is a very good movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what that represents as well.
And that as well, I mean, if we're going to be talking about a benchmark like that, there's not something that you could say, oh, that's good, but this is a better way to tell that story in a pure movie.
Just for the pure uniqueness of it.
Exactly. So
wow, very good. Okay, so Green Mile, yeah, that's really good to hear that it's at an 80%. I love how we're just moving up the numbers here. We have 35, 56. We are climbing a little bit.
Is Firestarter going to be a 90? Yeah. Zac Efron, 95.
I don't think we've recorded a 90 percentile yet, right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I can't wait then for Firestarter. All right, but no, so obviously we have one more film that is Firestarter left here, but folks, we're going to take a time here and just do this, remind everybody about that this is the producer segment here, and we want to thank all of you who have produced in the past, and remind everyone that we're going off the value for value model. So Vin and I come here, we host the show. What you can do, though, you can actually help produce the show. You can go to thedailyratings.com, go to the top right to the donations tab, and through any value you get from us, whether it's the podcast or the website, put a $sign to it, and then could you send us a donation? By doing that, that makes you an actual legit credited producer of doing this. So we're just starting out now. We're only really just we have a small audience, but we're growing slow and everything like that.
But we've been hearing from that audience too.
Oh my gosh,
like
absolutely.
The notes themselves have been so exciting to hear,
for sure.
and kind of even the banter and the ribbing of my ratings, and I love it
for sure. And that's another thing where everybody thinks like almost to talk to people privately, and they're at first nervous to critique or something like that. It's like, no, we welcome it. Yeah. We welcome it. Absolutely.
I'm critiquing these movies,
and we're not just slapping numbers anywhere. Yeah. These are meaningful. These have reason behind them. We try to do fair, honest, consistent. But anyway, folks, it makes you an actual producer of doing this, because it does take money to keep this going, and it takes quite a lot of time. So as you can see on the website, more and more movies from our huge, basically, backlog of lists that we've had for years at this point. To put those on, it takes a half an hour just to put one film on the site. That's time doing that. Vin watching 5 films a week, us doing this, getting the podcast up and loaded, and it takes a lot of time. So we're having a great time doing it, and I think we'll continue to have a blast doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But being a producer, it really is keeping it going because I don't think we could do it
forever.
Just
5 movies a week.
Because we have
My
day jobs
mental sanity is
right,
tipping.
And so for those who have produced, that's what it means. It's so meaningful to us. And some of the perks of becoming a producer is you can write in a note, and we're going to read it right here in this producer segment. You can ask questions, you can critique, you can have some laughs, and that's what it is. It's a through line to you. And if you're going to take time to actually send us money to become a producer of the Daily Ratings, then that definitely means something to us. So again, it's a value for value model. We're not the first ones to do it, but this is what we think that podcasts should do more and more of in the future. And we're kind of just building a Daily Ratings family here. So all producers and future producers, we thank you so much. Again, it's dailyratings.com. You go to the donation tab at the top right. And the donations are fun. You could do whatever amount of value you feel. So literally whatever you want, or we have reoccurring ones. So we have a weekly, we have a handful of monthlies and everything that are kind of fun and representative of some things on our site. And that's kind of what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate you listening, and we hope you all become a producer in the future. And with that, Vin, I think we're going to keep this going. We have our last film. This is our in theaters or newly released, which is what this is, newly released. This is Peacock.
Yeah, Peacock and in theaters, actually.
Wide release.
Okay. Which I was surprised. I watched it on Peacock because... Might as well. I think I still have the subscription from Marry Me. So,
and some films, maybe you don't need the theater watch. Some films, like we said in the past, definitely worth the theater watch. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this is Firestarter. This is directed by Keith Thomas. What is this movie? What is it about?
Sure.
And how was it overall?
So, folks at home, as you can tell from this episode, a Stephen King property does not always equal quality. These scores are a bit all over the map. And I think that can really be the various quantity over quality that is associated with Stephen King's writing. He really produces quite a bit, and as always throughout his career. Mm-hmm. And the films are really representative of that. Folks, you might be asking, why not review the original Firestarter? And I think it's because that original is panned even among Stephen King fans. So,
is that right?
Yeah. Sadly, I didn't. I didn't want to. I kind of wanted just the slightest chance that Firestarter could kind of stand on its own.
Oh, okay. All right, sure.
And especially with pre-research, like seeing John Carpenter do the music, I was like, oh, wow. Well, that's cool.
Were you able to stay away from reviews?
Yes.
I mean, it just came out and you just saw it.
Yes.
We're trying to do this as they come out. But
oddly enough, Firestarter and as well Top Gun, they've been doing a lot of early press stuff. So it's kind of a little bit a minefield. But also at the same time, that's when something like a Rotten Tomatoes is the most accurate because it's not an audience score and it's not even all reviewer scores. So that's when you really get the 100% for, opening weekend and whatnot. So.
Oh, the poop scores, you mean?
Or
well, I think because I'm surprised.
You said poop, so it's so serious.
Well, because
oh, you mean the poop scores?
Yeah, I think the initial weeks of Rotten Tomatoes is when they're the most terrible.
Yeah.
And is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that that's actually when they're the best?
No, that's that opening.
That first few weeks, I think they're hot garbage.
And in the end, you're saying quality.
Yeah,
the reviews themselves are the most gushing.
Whoa. Yeah, yes.
So we're on the same page.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, they suck.
Yeah, we'll call that the poop timeline.
Right.
The poop era.
But regardless, you were able to dodge that minefield a little bit and come in with fresh eyes to it.
Yeah, and
not a tainted mind towards it.
I just wanted to give it a fair shot. Also, again, in my pre-research, Blumhouse does this as far as horror production. I'll come right out and say it as I'm not a fan of them. Blumhouse could be kind of associated with an A24 that it's just a no-go for a lot of people.
What are some other films they've done?
Just so many horror movies. Happy Death Day. I mean, just anything in the 2010s, okay. But, a gem, I believe Blumhouse did Get Out as well. So, there's sometimes, main thing I wanted to separate myself from the original Firestarter and give a little bit of its own chance to survive on its own. So once again, we have a very simple story. Little girl has psychic powers, specifically pyrokinesis in this. But this time, both her parents, who were victims of experimental testing, they have psychic powers as well. And I think it's a little bit of stronger start to it almost being a family that kind of knows what's up. The intensity of the psychic events or the psychic action pieces, if you will, are a little bit more intense and a little bit more ramped up. And especially this being a new movie, I believe that trend of experimental government testing, kind of like an MK Ultra type of thing, that was more in vogue back then for telling horror stories.
Right.
Of course, Scanners is a good highlight of that. You know, kind of government hand over some illegal testing that results in powers.
Did you get? I mean, I hate to just bring it up again for a second time. Did you get like Stranger Things vibes?
No. This is very different.
Okay.
And especially this one specifically, brand new Firestarter. I mean, maybe original one, but much more of a family focus. To it. This family of psychic powers, this puts them on a chase from the organization that gave the powers to them in the first place, and really sprinkled throughout the film, we have both family drama and a little bit of action sequences until a big lead up of when the psychic powers are on a spotlight or on display. The family drama here is very bad.
Oh, really?
Zac Efron.
Not good. No
good. It's very rushed. My note is extremely rushed.
Okay.
I don't think I would have wrote that down if it wasn't extremely rushed. And yeah, I mean, the script, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. The script and then the delivery of the lines are just brutal. I mean, just brutal.
Really? That bad?
Yeah, a match made in hell is my note here.
Jeez.
It is... I mean, characters talk just very cliche. It really shines when we are meeting people in the slow middle second act.
Okay.
Because, I mean, this film kind of has a peak, has a beaten action that ends the first act. And then the second act, I mean, there is action, but there's just so much downtime. And believe me, the performances are just not there to meet it, not there to create intrigue. This goes for the kid actor. This goes for Zac Efron. This goes for nearly every supporting actor.
Really?
Yes. Very cheap. Very, very inconsequential. It's rough.
So I really like Kurtwood Smith, who played Dr. Joseph Wanless or Wayneless. In it.
Is that
older guy, glasses?
Yeah. He's in RoboCop and That 70s Show.
Oh yeah.
I always forget his name. Would have loved to see more of him. He's in one scene.
Okay,
one
gotcha.
Scene.
All right.
And if anything, has kind of a little bit of a cool monologue, but no. Very, very...
Just across the board, pretty much.
Yeah. Bad. Outwardly bad.
Okay.
And for real...
There's a kid leading it, so I mean, I can't say I'm shocked.
What's odd is I wish there was more to the kid leading it. Again,
Really?
I don't know the original story, so maybe the father takes a big lead, but Zac Efron is a main focus here. He kind of keeps everything on training wheels until we pass things over to the crazy finale.
Yeah.
So...
And was not good.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm fine giving anyone a shot, giving anyone their McConaughey moment, if you will, that they can kind of save their acting career. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no good. And just to focus on that middle boring third, that slow middle second act grinds to a halt. I mean, it is.
Oh, really?
It is.
And again, we're back down to an hour and a half. It's like an hour 34.
Like, why are we wasting time at all?
Wow. Okay.
It's crazy. Seriously, though. I mean, that second act is a complete and utter waste of time. And waste of time is specifically where I'm driving into, because I don't think, there can be a slow moment to not only make the finale stand out more. Mm-hmm. There can be a slow motion to build character stakes and our attachment there. This movie has none of it. It's a slow moment to pad out time, and it feels very manipulative for it. So
wow, okay, not very impressive.
Yeah. Going to the note that I kind of had down, this story I think fails because it's not enough around the little girl Charlie. Why? I think it's probably because they got Zac Efron and it took a little bit more of a larger role. This
didn't read the book, so
they didn't read the book, did not watch the original Firestarter, so this problem, I would say, is probably shared among all of the media or the whole story.
Right.
Yeah, it's man, it's just. I think it's putting casting first, but I can't be for sure. Either way, the actual implementation of it is real bad. A highlight where I expected none is the soundtrack. John Carpenter is killing it on this.
Okay. That's a silver lining.
It is a silver lining to what has been the trend of the episode, which is bad soundtrack.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. The one shine of light, the one.
Well, we didn't really talk about Green Mile. Was it much non-existent? Like, was it a quieter film?
No, it definitely did have. It plays into that whimsical element of it.
Okay, all right.
And the comedic setup and whatnot.
But
it's shooting. It's like,
okay, all right.
I don't know. I can't just. Well, if anything, it's a very late '90s. For that reason, kind of feels playful in that way.
So shooting, but no standout like this was.
Yes,
in Firestarter.
Yes, and I think it's just because John Carpenter has such a cool synthy design. This is not like the Carpenter we hear in like the escape movies where it's just like wailing like.
Right, yeah.
Ass guitar, it's very cool, like Halloween, it's awesome.
Cool.
Apparently as well, I think he was supposed to direct the original Firestarter, so maybe that's where like the nod of the head kind of goes to him doing this here.
He probably had the most passion in this project.
Sure, but it is an odd upside to a film. I would say almost so it's kind of a good background watch in an odd way, just because the soundtrack is pretty cool. It has a lot of love put into it, and really iconic in a good way for John Carpenter. So just totally unexpected. Really, and I mean, talk about what a reversal where almost every single
that's really
film
funny. Hey, leave it up to John Carpenter though.
Yeah.
And he was directed to film the 1984 Firestarter.
Yeah.
But was replaced because the thing that he directed did not do well.
But the thing is so good.
On the box office.
Yeah,
true.
True. Yeah, that's gonna decide it. So, unfortunately, though, I would say this movie lives and dies on special effects. We're talking about pyrokinesis. It's gotta be flames.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a stumble because of Blumhouse, and maybe if folks at home, if you are a fan of Blumhouse's horror and you just love any type of horror and you like how much they produce and whatnot. It might be a little bit more tolerable here, and it might be a little bit more on pace for what they do from a production standpoint. But I found nearly all of the CGI to be very cheap. It really does feel like plugins to an editor. It feels like a plugin to Adobe Premiere or something like that. Yeah, so or After Effects.
Was it better in Ghost Rider, which we reviewed recently? That's immediately what came to my mind.
I don't know.
Okay,
Ghost Rider had those cool flame boot prints. I was really sold on those.
Ghost Rider 1 in the
Ghost Rider right there. Her head's not on fire, and that was bad on Ghost Rider.
But overall, just it was taking you out completely because it just looked so bad. Huh?
Yeah, and to explain it, it's like this is a wide release. It would be like if a wide release really put in a lot of stock Adobe After Effects gunshots or smoke or background fire. But this fire is in the foreground because it's the power. It's the whole point.
It's like the whole
Firestarter. I don't know what I gotta say. And that's where I say it kind of lives and dies because, boy, if the CGI is stumbling on this one, I mean, what are we here for?
Absolutely.
Zac Efron is not gonna save it. I would say the sets as well also feel distinctly cheap, which is, I mean, man, I'm not the most versed in Blumhouse films, but I can only point to the fact that the sets around this, especially like the final bad guy's lair. I mean, Tom, you and I could slap something together in the place we're in right now.
Is that right?
Like, paint some walls gray, maybe a little bit of LED lighting, and that's it. It's real slapped together. And I got to be honest, I mean, production like that, I did not expect, and I definitely didn't expect out of this being, I wouldn't say flagship, but a kind of make or break moment for Peacock as well, as a streaming service. Maybe that's wrong to point the finger in that way.
Maybe. I think this will come and go. This movie's what it sounds like.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I usually don't have high expectations for these type of yearly horror releases, and certainly of the expectations of the Stephen King remakes. I mean, I think a study this week could have just been on just the remakes themselves.
Yeah.
Which, would have been a lot worse as far as ratings go. But this unfortunately it doesn't hedge the bet. It doesn't clear the jump on its own and falls into that same type of cheap in all the wrong areas and not worth your time in a lot of ways. If you're really craving a story about psionic powers, watch the movie Scanners instead. We're going to go ahead and give Firestarter a 28.
Ooh, 28. Back down to the lowest one. Ooh, boy, okay.
We were climbing the roller coaster, and
now we're
Green
down.
Mile was the top.
Somehow appropriate. I don't think anyone's too shocked at that. But 28 really just represents not worth your time.
Yeah.
It's just another bad horror in the can, and don't bother with it.
And again, if I really had to nail it down to something, it's in that CGI. I mean, man,
and Zac Efron. I think,
sure.
To be 28, there's multiple things failing here.
Yes, very true.
Yeah,
very true.
But boy, and when it comes down to is there's better Stephen King horror out there. That's what it comes down to. Don't waste your time on this.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome, Vin. There's a great film study here that we did.
Yeah.
And you put it together just randomly. You just went for it this week, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to continue with, or are we rolling credits on this?
I think we're rolling credits.
Okay, all right.
We're done.
Well, Vin, we always appreciate you watching these and stopping by. Folks at home, we're going to run this through one more time. So we have Carrie with a 35%, Cujo with a 56%, Stand By Me with a 73%, The Green Mile with an 80%, and Firestarter with a 28%. Again, folks, we thank you so much for listening and stopping by, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-spanning catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.